I'm Ben Edwards. I'm going to be hosting today's session. I'm the head of partnerships at CMAP, the parent company for Atvero. And both CMAP and Atvero are deeply invested in AEC and built environment. And we're delighted with the interest levels and appreciate you giving us an hour of your time for today's fascinating webinar with Microsoft. The reason we're all here, the primary purpose of today, is to shed some light on the ever-changing landscape of AEC information management and how you can leverage cutting-edge technologies from Microsoft and Atvero to help you get and stay ahead. We're delighted to be joined by two of Microsoft built environment team. We have Siri, who's the account CTO, and Richard, technical specialist, both within that built environment market specialism. They'll be introducing themselves shortly. And I know they've got deep AEC market knowledge and are going to be sharing some brilliant insights with you all today. We've also got Marcus, who's our head of Atvero. He's leading the charge in our own business, bringing the next generation of document, drawing, email management to AEC customers, plus integrating that with CMAP's best-in-class project and resource management. So the agenda. You'll be able to see that on screen any second now. Each builds upon the previous of the 5, so it promises to be an exciting start with a big picture perspective from Microsoft on where we are today. Then we've got further industry insight. We're going to be taking a deeper look into the challenges for you all around information management, followed by some of the solutions. So look into how you can leverage Atvero and Microsoft, then a demo of Microsoft 365's Copilot, really excited to see that. And then we end with plenty of time for you to ask questions of the 3 panelists that we've got alongside me today, which leads me quite neatly into 3 quick housekeeping items. So first off, we've got just under an hour now, and I've left 15 minutes for Q&A. Secondly, feel free to ask questions throughout. You can do that using the Q&A tab, which is at the top of the Teams interface between chat and people. The great thing with that is no other attendees will see your questions, so you can add some business context to them and keep them coming in throughout the session. And potentially, if they're right in the moment, we'll ask them of the panelists in the session. Equally, we can build up a bank and get through them at the end. We've left plenty of time for that. And then third and finally, this webinar is being recorded and an open access link is going to be sent to you tomorrow through your email, so you can rewatch or you can share with your colleagues. So delighted to be joined by 3 fantastic panelists. Suri, can I ask you first to do a quick intro, please?
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. So great to be here today. My name is Suri Teja. So within Microsoft UK, I'm an account CTO, and specifically I focus on the built environment team. I look after a number of different customers across the built environment team here. And my role is really focused around helping my customers achieve their business outcomes through our different technology solutions. So I span across all of our different technology stacks. So, you know, everything to do with Azure, which is our cloud computing platform. So infrastructure, data and AI, everything to do with modern work, which is Office 365, Teams, Viva, business applications, which is Dynamics, Power Platform, and then finally security, which underpins everything.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Richard, can I ask you to do an intro too?
Yes, you absolutely can. And again, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. My name is Richard Barrett. I am a modern work technical specialist here at Microsoft. I work with customers when they want to look deeper at products within the modern work stack. A lot of my time at the moment is talking to people about Microsoft 365 Copilot. So very, very happy to be leading the demonstration and showing that to you all later on today. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Richard. Marcus, finally over to you.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Marcus Roberts. My background was in computer science a very long time ago, but I spent the last about 20 years working in IT for architects and engineers, and that gave me a whole load of insights into the problems that the industry faces, and that's what led to me leading the development of Atvero as a software product starting back in 2018. The world certainly changed a lot since we started on the first lines of code. The challenges have certainly changed, and it's going to be exciting to talk about them today.
Brilliant. 3 great intros, great scene setting. Suri, I think you're also doing a little bit of that for us within the context of Microsoft perspective on the future of AEC in the built environment. So over to you.
Thanks, Ben. So I'll just take control. Okay, so let's start with the world today. things all around are changing rapidly, and organizations need to adapt. This is nothing new. So if you look back just a few years ago, we saw organizations that had already invested in their own digital foundations were able to weather the disruption of the pandemic better, better than the peers. So with many of them actually went off the back of the pandemic coming out very stronger than before. So we believe that we're on the cusp of something, of a similar inflection point today. The pressures are different. After years of disruption driven by the pandemic, industries are continuing to transform quickly. The global workforce is shrinking as the population ages, and at a macro level, labour productivity has stalled for years. And with a more connected global population, we've seen security threats emerge and evolve faster than ever. And when we distill this down to the built environment, we're all aware of the unique pressures driving quality design and delivery within the sector. So whether it's, changing regulatory climate due to more complex client demands, or the increasing need for more sustainable infrastructure, the way in which AEC firms now, have to utilize information, they need to utilize it to deliver better outcomes, and it's never been more complex. So within Microsoft, can you see this? Can you see the slides? Because I'm just seeing achieve more on there. I can't see if it's all come up. Can you see the whole mission statement?
Looks to me.
Yeah, so within Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. We believe that the use of digital technologies is the means of helping the built environment solve for such challenges. This mission was introduced by our CEO Satya back in 2015 during, the early part of his career as CEO. And the mission statement reflects on our focus to empower everyone, through technology. And it was meant to enable Microsoft to pivot towards focusing on technology outcomes and not just on the great features and functionalities involved in technology. Oh, there you are. Sorry, should have. So what we've done within the UK built environment team is we've basically expanded that mission statement, and we're focusing on 3 key areas. So firstly, how do we support sustainable transformation within the built environment? But when we talk about sustainability, we're not just talking about environmental sustainability, but also the long-term viability of our customers' businesses. So enabling this through things like digital skills development and the shaping of new services. Secondly, when we refer to value-based technology, we aim to focus on industry technology outcomes and not just the feature and functionality of technology. So this is where we hope to showcase how this is being delivered by partner solutions like Atvero today. And then finally, when we focus on whole life capabilities, we're talking about how we do this through our cloud services and to drive greater interoperability across disparate application spaces and to drive the right outcomes for end users across the built environment supply chain. And at Microsoft, we believe there's 2 digital trends that are enabling these digital technologies to help solve for some of these issues. So ubiquitous computing, this is also known as pervasive computing. This is everything to do with computer sensors connected with computing devices in our physical environments, which allows to provide a space of continual and ongoing computing. And this technology is beginning to transform the workplace in several ways. And when we combine this with the power of AI, we begin to open new possibilities within the built environment. And some of these include content summarization, so the ability to summarize large volumes of text-based information that can help prove project or build related updates. Enterprise search, so the ability to instantly query different data types such as image, document, video, data assets for improved decision making. And then finally, collaboration, so simply enabling better collaboration across teams by providing greater context within meetings or even live translation services. And it all starts with our ubiquitous computing fabric. As we increasingly see this, being embedded in the world, Azure is our ubiquitous compute platform. It spans from the cloud to the edge. So from our global infrastructure all the way down to the end user and OT devices. And this powers every workload, so commercial, IT, OT workloads, internet scale workloads, AI, immersive experiences, etc. And our operating leverage will come from world-class systems, from being a world-class systems company that knows how to build computing fabric for the world, for both today and tomorrow's workloads. And within the built environment team, we're constantly expanding the range of connectors that deliver integration across disparate application systems. So whether that's Bentley's ProjectWise Procore or even Trimble Construction Cloud. Put simply, we understand that people are at the heart of delivering value in the AEC sector. Hence, what we're going to discuss today will focus on how we can use applications to help surface information that enable organizations to collaborate for work winning, mitigate risks associated to regulatory changes, and finally provide enhanced experiences to drive productivity. Okay. Back to you, Ben.
Thanks for that. Appreciate that overview. We're going to be passing over to Marcus in a second because we're going to take a deeper dive into 3 key areas and 3 key challenges that a lot of people on this call will face, particularly if you're looking at project information management. So, Marcus, what are the 3 key areas that everybody needs to be most aware of? Oh, you're still on mute, Marcus.
I think you're on mute there.
Someone had to do it. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Good question. The 3 areas I want to talk about today really are what we've observed both in my time prior to creating Atvero and seeing the problems that AEC practices had in managing information, and stuff that we've learned also with our customers now over the last 4 or 5 years as Atvero's rolled out with them. We've seen the sort of challenges they're facing. And really there are sort of 3 key areas I'm going to go through today. Quality management, risk, and the changes in modern ways of working that we've seen over the last couple of years. So the first one on quality management, there's quite a few areas to go through there. The basic summary, though, that it all stems from is uncontrolled filing. So if we look back to how people were working 4 or 5 years ago, it would be an on-premise server, probably with a huge folder structure per project where people were meant to file the information that they were working on. Now, I've sat through so many practice meetings where they've been trying to define this folder structure. These arguments tend to go on for years. And when you do come up with that folder structure, no one really understands it. One person might be happy with it and 99% of the people aren't. So when you're then coming to choose where to store information in that folder structure, it's a real struggle. Just mentally, your model of how information is stored is different to everybody else's. And that often means that information ends up being stored in multiple places or the wrong place and just makes it very difficult to discover it. Kind of linked to that is how are you managing the history of your documents? If you just got a Windows file server, it's just got the current version of the files that you've been working on. And so you ended up with these folders I've seen everywhere called superseded or SS. And inside those folders, you've got a whole ton of folders that are files and folders that all been renamed with the current date or something like that. So you can capture the history of what you've been working on, but in a very unstructured way. And what that leads to, unfortunately, is how do you find the very latest version of a drawing or document? And well-intentioned colleagues, while you're on holiday, look into the folder where they think it belongs. They take that information, they send it out, but they haven't found the latest version that you were working on and you didn't put in the right place just before you went on holiday. So now you've got wrong information that's been issued out to the people that you're working with. The other standard problem we've got is project standards. So that's really about how you're naming your files, making sure people are following the correct naming scheme. How you apply metadata to them. So what revisions, what statuses you're applying, how those interrelate. So are you issuing out information that's for construction, but with a work in progress status? That's the sort of thing you shouldn't be allowed to do with a system. So really making sure people are following those standards that you spent so long defining for your project. And also because it's going to lead to potentially fines or penalties if you issue out information which is named wrong or set with the wrong metadata. The people you're working with on the project are either going to be unhappy or going to penalise you for doing that. And then we probably all know people who use WeTransfer or other systems like that for sending those files out, but they're really sort of transient form of sending information. How do you know in 5 years' time who was sent what information when? Have you got a record of what was sent through it? Because quite often within 30 days that information has disappeared. So those are the challenges you want, making sure you're keeping the information in the right place, making sure that you're standardizing in how you're describing and naming that information, and keeping a track of the information that you sent out. The next level of challenge is risk. And I suppose I've talked to quite a few people, particularly the finance directors, and they say, well, hey, everyone knows that we've got insurance to these projects, and it makes us a really easy target. You can come and you can litigate, you can raise a case against us, and then we're on the back foot, and we have to demonstrate that we have got the information to prove that the case is wrong. And unfortunately, it can often be easier just to pay up in a case if you can't bring easily to hand the information that you need to fight off that challenge, even though you've done nothing wrong. The legislative landscape is also changing quite a lot, driven unfortunately by some quite serious incidents in the UK, but we now have the Building Safety Act. And right now that is only addressing certain high-rise buildings and certain that have residential in them. But I can see that rolling out across the whole industry. But the intention of the Building Safety Act is actually quite good. And you've probably heard something called the golden thread, but it's this idea that all of the decisions, all of the information is kept so that for every stage of the life cycle of a building, through from design, through to construction, through to people using it, you can go back and say, okay, we've got this situation. Why did we? What led to us? What led to our decision that we used these materials or we designed it in this way? And you need to be able to show that. Working in IT for the last 10, 15 years, one of the challenges we've always had is people need to keep information for a long time. So they need to keep it 6 years with the standard, then 12. And that's quite difficult for an IT system to actually, recover that information as needed. But I think the Building Safety Act, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's made changes to what's called the Defective Premises Act. And that was that people involved in the construction of the building could be involved in litigation for up to 6 years post-construction. That's now been extended from 6 years to 15 years. And almost 30 years for where it's a refurb or of a new building. So that record keeping becomes really important. So what we're saying now is in 30 years' time, you might have to find a record, a document that you created. And I was thinking back to what to do, even our computers looked like 30 years ago. So it's not quite the IBM PC rolling out, but it is Windows 95. So the challenge of going and finding a document now that you created in Word, I don't know what Word was when Windows 95 was out, that's pretty challenging. So this is going to make life quite difficult for the people running your systems. And then modern ways of working, I think this is a challenge, but it's a really good one. So since the pandemic and since Generation Z have started joining the workforce, as well as the millennials, they've got a very different idea of how they want to work. And really that comes down to allowing people to work securely, and that's a really important word there, securely from any location. And we've also had that shift away from desktops where people go into an office and sit and use a desktop every day to laptops and now even tablets, where people just want to be able to work ubiquitously wherever they are in the world. So the systems that people are looking to use, essentially that's going to be browser based. So we want to look at how we support people to work in the browser. We want to move away from on-premise infrastructure. We want to move away from the sort of like the server in the office and the VPN that lets you have access to the data, because people are always complaining the VPN doesn't work. I remember all those IT tickets coming in, but also they are at the root of so many security issues. That VPN into your office is the chink in the armor of your firewalls and your network security, and so many cybersecurity incidents are related to remote access into that secure internal network. So those are the three main challenge areas that I see being part of the AEC world today.
That was great, Marcus. And there's a real clear picture around the direction of travel as well, and the challenges that have surfaced recently that will continue to change over the mid and long term, that firms will no doubt want to get ahead of, ranging from pretty small to some pretty substantial challenges as well. But they're problems that can be overcome. So keen to see a little bit more about some of the solutions that we can offer to those problems. So how can Atvero and Microsoft be leveraged and maximized?
Thank you, Ben. So no surprise, we want to talk about Atvero today because we think that it solves many of those challenges that we just went through. So in a very quick summary, Atvero is a very modern document drawing and email management system. It's built on top of the Microsoft Cloud, and I'll show you as we go through what it does, how it addresses the challenges that we just covered. The core of what we do is one place for all the project's information. So those are the drawings, the documents that you put. It's the record and the history of the information you communicated to people, the information you received in. And email, we're all starting to use Teams now, but email is still a key communication method. It's probably how you exchange the contract of the building you're going to work on, or the work that you're going to be doing. So Atvero is there then to really retain every version of or every revision of the documents and drawings that you're working on, file your email and find it all in one place. So we built it on top of SharePoint, and I'm going to talk about why the advantages of that and the power that brings to Atvero as a platform. But really, SharePoint is this fantastic document management system that is very generalized. People can go use it, but it's not focused on one particular industry. So Atvero is SharePoint basically tailored to the requirements of the AEC industry. So we only sell Atvero to AEC customers. You can use it as a lawyer because all of our terminology and everything is very specific to the built environment. So if we look at the three challenges that I just went through, I can talk briefly through how Atvero addresses them. So each project that you're running as a practice will, in Atvero's world, be created as essentially a Microsoft group or as a SharePoint site. And that gives us a place to store all of the documents and drawings that are related to your project. It also creates an email inbox for filing the emails that are related to that project. And all of this can either be accessed through a browser or integrated into Teams. Now, the one thing I really love, and it's quite controversial, is we've got rid of folders completely. So all those arguments about which folders structure to use, which folders to use, they're now gone. The idea is instead there's just one place you drop all the files that you've got into Atvero, and by a mixture of metadata, search, filter, we can help you find the information that you want. And what's really powerful about that is by tagging the information, by adding this metadata, people can essentially create their own views of the data that works in the way that their mental model works. So they can set up a view, say, I just want to see this information organized in this way. And so if I have that view, Richard could have a completely different view on the same data. And I think that's really powerful. We enforce naming standards, so we work with any sort of naming standards, project standards, but 19650, which is an ISO standard, is starting to define really well how people in the AEC industry should be exchanging information. And the simplest form of that is how to name files, but interesting as well is how you exchange information in a controlled manner. So we help there, so we enforce project standards, we make sure the naming schemes that you defined are being used, and we also make it basically easy to do the right thing. So Atvero will automatically suggest document numbers for you. It'll work with your own MIDPs as well. You can import all those in one go and set up your structure of your project as you start at the start of the project and then work through it. We've got some really great approval workflows built in to make sure nothing's issued out of the system without being checked and signed off first. So we also start to build down on the power of Microsoft. So we use the really, I think, industry-leading search engine, which is built into SharePoint, Microsoft 365 and Azure. And that lets us search across all the data that's within a project. Searches documents, it searches inside of emails, it searches inside of attachments. So it's going to find, if you've got information saved into Atvero, you're going to be able to find it based on the content, the keywords that you're searching. We also store all the versions, every revision of a document and drawing that's put in is stored inside of Atvero. And so we make it easy to find the latest versions of everything and be able to send them out. We make it quite hard, but not impossible, to find earlier versions of things and issue those things out. So it's a place just to come and find that complete project history in one place. Transmittals and issuing of information is built into Atvero. So now again, all that information is in one place. You come to this project, you can find all of the transmittals you made. And we will automatically create those transmittals. We'll create the issue registers automatically. And if you use our Atvero checkpoint module, that provides a really nice looking portal. We use the backgrounds that the marketing department really love you to have to show off all the projects you've been working on in the background, but it gives you a really secure place to exchange information externally and also build that full audit record of all the information that you've sent out. We address risk really by, first of all, gathering all that project information into one place, but also putting it onto a platform that we believe will still be here in 30 years. So I kind of make a little bit of a joke that perhaps 30 years ago you might have chosen IBM because nobody got fired for choosing IBM. But these days, nobody's going to get fired for choosing Microsoft. So if you want a platform that's going to be there in 30 years, Microsoft and me, who are a very business focused, biggest cloud provider, are the people to go for. Also, we start to inherit some of the great things that SharePoint is bringing. So we are looking forward to archiving coming out later in the year. So that's going to help you keep all of your projects in SharePoint, but also reduce down the SharePoint data usage, but still have all of your information online. As I've said, also, email is really key to modern projects. It's where those key documents probably are still being exchanged. So with our email filing, we're capturing it all into Exchange, and we believe that's where emails should be filed. And it gives you an easy place to go and find and search all of the emails that you have in your project. So basically reducing risk by keeping all the information that you've sent out, keeping all the information that you've received in, filing all the emails with that key communication, keeping it online, and as the project comes to an end, being able to naturally archive it. What I really like about our email filing is that it's going to file stuff into Exchange without duplicating emails and without slowing your Outlook down. Now, unfortunately, I don't quite trust AI yet to file my emails for me, so it's still a manual process, but maybe Richard might share something where I start to trust that AI a little bit more to do that email filing for me, because we all hate doing our email filing. And so modern way of working, really, we just, by building on top of Microsoft's rock solid cloud infrastructure, we inherit that sort of like great availability, great durability of the data that's being put there. It works in the browser or it works in Teams. So it's going to work great on any device that any of your staff have got. We use the same UI language, user interface language as Microsoft's online tools. So it's going to be really familiar to your staff when they come and start using this. Being built on top of Microsoft 365. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you're already a Microsoft 365 customer. So what we're doing is helping you leverage your existing investment in Microsoft licensing to start to use all those technologies that are already there. And really key for me, we store your data in your Microsoft account. So the data ownership is always yours. It's not going off into some third-party cloud. It stays underneath your Microsoft account. And it's stored in a really open format. So you can look at it, you can query it in Power BI. All that information is there for you to look at. We also leverage the Microsoft security. So at the simplest level, your single sign-on is going to work in Atvero because you're just logging into Microsoft. All of the MFA protection, the multi-factor protection is there to keep your users and your staff and your data safe. All of the great stuff that's there in the E3, E5 onwards with data governance, data protection applies to all the data that you store in Atvero. So it's great for storing information, and also gives us the confidence to say you can use Atvero for those commercially sensitive projects or the government projects or military projects, because you can separate and partition the data with great certainty that only the right people are going to be able to see, search and access that data. Being built on top of Microsoft also means that we inherit all the features of the Microsoft platform. So as I mentioned, we're really excited about archiving coming soon because it saved us from building it, and it's going to be a great solution for keeping your data online for that 30 years challenge that we've got. And also we've got things like Copilot coming out, which are really exciting for how they give you access to your own data in your Microsoft account. So I think hopefully that's a very quick overview of how Atvero can address some of the challenges that we see in the AEC sector. And what I'm going to do now is hand back to Ben, who's going to intro Richard.
Well, actually, we've had a couple of pertinent questions come in, Marcus. And we, encourage everybody to keep those questions coming in. So whilst you are talking about Atvero, probably a question from a current client: do we need to use Atvero via SharePoint, or can we just work from Teams where our staff are already comfortable?
So you can work in both locations, and that's a really good question. So I see personally Teams as being the portal where everybody does their work all day, every day. And so it's important for us that Atvero links into that. So if you've got Teams and you've got Teams channels set up for your project already, we'll just put Atvero as a tab at the top of each team, and you can click into there, and without leaving the Teams application, you can see all of that Atvero information, the same as if you're in the browser.
And a linked one to that is, does Atvero handle migrations of existing project information from other third-party systems or SharePoint? I don't know if you answered the second part of that with your first response, and if not, feel free to answer both elements.
Yes, it does. So we've got a great set of data sort of capture and import tools. So there are three sort of competitors in our space that where we can take data that's locked into on-premise servers and move it up into the Atvero cloud very easily. And it's something we've done for lots of customers now. There's just one other question, Ben. So someone's asking about, does this work with large CAD files such as Revit models? So currently not at the moment. So AutoCAD you can if you have a controlled way of working and are willing to lock and unlock the files. Revit models definitely not. Revit has got a great sensitivity to latency. So BIM 360 Autodesk Construction Cloud really is the only way to work the Revit models at the moment, or on on-premise servers. Hopefully there'll be some good news in the coming years from Microsoft on OneDrive and file locking and things like that, but right now Revit doesn't work there. But AutoCAD,
Great.
yes. InDesign, yes. Word, all the other documents you work on every day work really fantastically well in OneDrive and SharePoint.
Perfect. Thanks, Marcus. And again, just encourage everybody to keep those questions rolling in as we now move on to the fourth part of our agenda. Really excited for this, Richard. This is going to be the Microsoft 365 Copilot demo, and I'll pass over to you. Take it away.
So thank you, Ben, and thank you, everyone. So yes, I'm really lucky. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Microsoft 365 Copilot. But what I'm actually going to do, rather than kind of talk to you, I'm going to show a couple of slides, and then I'm going to show you a live demo. And I'm going to talk about some of the way that I think it can help in this sector, and also pull on some of the things that Marcus said previously as well. So a couple of slides to set the scene, and then we'll get moving. So as I said, I'm going to talk to you today about Microsoft 365 Copilot. The way I would encourage you all to think about Microsoft 365 Copilot is as your personal AI assistant at work. Okay, so imagine you had someone who sat next to you all day long and you could say, find this file, write me an email, take this document and make it into a presentation, go and get me the latest, imagine you could turn to that person. Clearly, that's not practical. So what we are doing is bringing an AI assistant to do that work for you. So when we think about Microsoft 365 Copilot, the way we like to think about it is it's using large language models. Okay, you've all heard, I'm sure, about things like ChatGPT. I think, I can even speak to my family who maybe don't really pay much attention to what I do at work, and even they know about these large language models. So we take these models that you know today. We take the Microsoft 365 apps you work in every day, Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So we bring the two of those together. But the sort of secret bit that we add in is your data. Okay, so we've got those large language models that can answer questions. We've got the apps you work in, but we also understand your data. So if I want to say to it, let's say I'm going to meet Marcus, and Marcus is a customer of mine, and I say, what's the latest with Marcus at Atvero? It's going to be able to look at my latest emails, Teams messages, meetings I've been in, any files that reference Atvero and Marcus. So when I walk into that meeting room, maybe Marcus says, I don't walk in and Marcus goes, Rich, you've not got back to me. I'm ready and I'm up to date. That's the real secret bit about 365 Copilot. It's got all this great generative AI, but it knows your data as well. And just to confirm which products it will be in, at launch, which is on the 1st of November, we are rapidly approaching. This will be in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, Loop, and I should add Whiteboard to this as well, because we announced Whiteboard the other day as well. So all these core apps will be available at 1st of November. It is an additional license, but it will be available to purchase from the 1st of November onwards. Now, I could do an hour or more on security, and I don't have time for that today, but I did want to mention a little bit, because I think it's absolutely critical when we think about products like this, that we touch on security. So Microsoft 365 Copilot is built upon that same security layer that Marcus was talking about earlier. All those good things it still sits on. So none of those rules change. Okay. But the one I'm going to call out is responsible AI. So there's a couple of, again, we could spend a long time talking about this, but in terms of this product, I want to go through three things. The data you use is your data. We are not training any of these models that power this on your enterprise data. Full stop, period. And all of your data is still protected by the normal security controls that you have. Okay, so we could spend a long time on this. We don't have too long today, but I did wanted to touch on it because I know how important it is. So if you take anything away, it's probably that we are not training the models on your data and your normal security principles still stand. If you don't have access to a document, Copilot does not give you access to that document. Okay, so really happy, or your wider Microsoft account teams to talk about that in more detail, but I just wanted to talk a little bit on that before we go in. So hopefully the moment you've all been waiting for, a live demo of Copilot. As I said, we haven't quite launched yet, so that's my little caveat that you never know, something might not quite go right. But let's see how we get on with this. Right, I'm going to share my screen and we will go for this. Now, there's lots of different things Copilot can do. So I'm going to try and give a few tangible examples of where I think it can help specifically in this sector. And I'm sharing my screen now, so hopefully you should all be able to see that. This is based upon, we had some early adoption customers who we allowed access to the products early. Okay, so I'm using some of their feedback here. I'm just going to remove my video from the screen, then you'll be able to see full screen, because I'm sure you want to see the demo rather than seeing me talking. So here we go. I'm a user and I'm here in Outlook. How often, especially when you're jumping between lots of different projects, does someone basically add you into an email thread and say, "Hi Ben, what do you think?" And you're like, "I don't know, you've had 12 emails that refer to all sorts of things before you even added me onto the email thread." So one of the ways we can help with there is you can add this new button in with Copilot called Summary by Copilot. And what this does is it looks at the entire thread that's beneath that, and it summarizes it into 3 paragraphs. These look like sentences. That's just because it's quite a small piece of demo data. In reality, they become quite large paragraphs. And that will basically summarize the thread for me. But what's really important, I think, is that we're also putting these little 1, 2, 3, 4s on. These are references. So when I see here, it says, "Canan confirmed that business planning agreed to the model and provided some upfront costs." I might think, what? I don't think Canan was involved with that. If I click on 2, it will scroll down and I can go and see a bit of the email that relates to that piece of summarization. Okay, so the point of this here is that we all know that people get lots of emails. People who work in projects get even more emails probably, and you're probably moving between different projects as well. So how can we help you quickly get up to speed? How can we help you do the things your clients are paying you for and that you have great skills in, and not spending your time working for an Outlook inbox? And this works on mobile as well as desktop as well. So again, you can imagine traveling between sites or project locations, the power that this has. Now, that's not the only thing we can do. The next question I normally get asked is, well, can you reply to my emails for me? There's a really good point, and the answer is no, and we don't want to. We think that we want to build a Copilot that sits alongside you, okay, and helps you. We do not want to build an autopilot. So for that reason, we are not building a reply to my emails button. Sorry, apologies. But what we will do is help you draft replies. So this thread here is about a new product, and we're going to have an upfront fee, and we're going to have a monthly cost. It doesn't really matter for this demo. What I want to say as this team's manager is 10,000 upfront, 750 a month. No more conversation. Now, clearly, I'm not going to send emails like that to people. That's not a polite way to respond, but that is fundamentally the message I want to get across. So we're giving it some prompts that I'd like to create a fairly short reply. I want it to be neutral, not overly direct. I can then go and hit generate, and the system will understand the thread, take my prompt, and generate me a first draft of my email. Will this email be perfect and everything I possibly want? Of course it won't. But it will be a good first stab. So here we are. It's basically saying, oh, it's, we're going to go with this price. But it's even decided Friday as a good point. But the idea is I press keep. I move it into here, and then I can press send. So there's no option to press send without moving it into a draft. Okay, so Copilot's helped me get started, but I now can tweak that and work on it. Again, really, really powerful. If you're dealing with suppliers and clients, and you want to make sure that, when you write an email, it's really well considered because, they're paying for your time and your services. So that's one of the ways that Copilot can help us. Another thing Copilot can help us do, it can help us, where should we go next? Let's go to Teams, okay? So here's an example of a project I was working on, Project Genesis, and we had a status call. Okay, I'm sure you all go to lots of Teams meetings, and from Microsoft, we thank you for your custom. But lots of times you might miss a bit of a meeting, or the meeting was 3 weeks ago, or I was on holiday, or the Amazon delivery driver arrived and I missed a bit of the call. So what Copilot can help me do is to follow up after the meeting. So here's the meeting. I've got some notes of what happened, some tasks. I can see who was speaking. But if I flip to Copilot just here, I can actually ask questions about this meeting. So give me a 1-sentence summary of this meeting. Okay, so I can type the question in natural English. There's no hard-coded set of prompts. It's natural language, and it will go ahead. It will look at the transcript, and it's come back and said, there we go. It was about the launch plans for Project Genesis. The team decided to delay the launch by 2 weeks and keep the press event and assign some actions to different members. Fine. Then I might say, okay, give me the actions in a table. So what I'm now doing is not only asking questions, I'm dictating the format I want the responses in. And what we see from a lot of our kind of AEC customers who had this for previews is that the ability to do things like this was really helpful, because then what they were doing was copying that table by pressing that button and moving it into, formal minutes or going back to the client or whatever it was that you were specifically doing. Again, why does this help? We reduce the time on things that you can't bill for, admin, and make it easier for you to get on with your day-to-day job. This also works during a meeting as well. So halfway through a meeting, I can say, what have I missed so far? Or something like that. Or let's say Surrey said something at the start, and maybe I didn't quite catch what he was saying, or I missed a point. Okay, what did Surrey mention ubiquitous computing? And it would come back and give me the exact bit of text of what Surrey was saying, and I could ask him questions. So again, power and speed to help me move forward. There's a couple of things we can do there. Now, obviously, in your sector, you generate lots of information, and you will often find that information in the future. And, Marcus has already been very complimentary about our search engine in SharePoint. But we can do a little bit more with Copilot. So we're introducing this new concept called Microsoft 365 Chat. This is a new experience that comes with Copilot that you can access. You can access it in Teams, just like as a little bot. You can access it in the browser, and in future, going forward, we will bake it into other areas as well. And you can see here, I can ask all sorts of things. List the key information from this document. Where have I been mentioned? What did Marcus say about SharePoint? Create me some FAQs based upon. Basically, if you've been in a meeting or an email, or it's in a file that you have access to, this lets you query it. And actually in this industry, because you have, Marcus was talking about like file naming conventions and they're becoming standard, that actually really helps us. Because what I could do here is I could say, who was the last person to update? So maybe there's like a plan or something I want to look at, or a specification. I press / that basically says, go and find me now, peoples, and you can see all that, people, files, meetings, etc. But if I start typing letters, it will filter on the latest files that I have worked with. Again, Atvero is based on SharePoint. The files sit on SharePoint. So if you use Atvero for your project documentation, when Copilot comes in, guess what? You're ready and it can work. This can also look at the internet. Maybe the information is not internal. So I've tested this, but this is a brave test. I'm going to go for it. What version of Office was out when Windows 95 was released? Okay, that's the question that Marcus asked earlier. So let's do a live demo now. It's going to look through my emails, it's going to look through my meetings and my files. If it doesn't find it, it'll go to the internet. So straight away, it's gone to the internet to see what it's found. It was called Office 95. Some people knew it as Office 7.0, and it was released on the 24th of August, 1995, the same day as Windows 95. There you go, Marcus, I've answered your question. So where this becomes really helpful is because we've now given you a new way to access all this information. The beauty is all of the information like that Marcus was about is in Atvero, which is on SharePoint. So this would work tomorrow. One final demo, and then I will finish. We're also building some stuff into our Office applications. Now, a lot of the work I've been doing with some of our early preview customers has been with like business development teams or teams that go and win work. You'll get something in. Maybe you deliver a presentation to the customer to win some work, or maybe you have, and they say to you, "Oh, that's lovely. Can you summarize it into an executive summary?" And you're like, "Okay, but I've just done a presentation for you. Now I've got to start again." So what if we could do things like make me an executive summary of / I'm going to type quickly so you don't see any files appear. Genesis. So this was the meeting that I was using. Oh, is it going to time out? It will go and find it. I can find the file and it will generate me an executive summary based on a PowerPoint document, or vice versa. Okay, so we can move things forwards and backwards. The other thing is you probably have lots of quite large documentation that you need to read. I rather cheekily went and grabbed the Atvero terms of use off their website just before this call. This is a 12-page document, but I can go to Copilot and get Copilot to help me understand this file. So first of all, I could say to Copilot, can you give me a summary of this document? So that's now going to read this entire document and summarize the purpose. Now, in this example, we probably know what it is, and the summary is probably not the most useful example, but it will summarize it. But where it's really powerful is it lets me ask questions of the document as well. So there we are. It's kind of explained to me what the document is. Lovely. That's wonderful. But I could say to it, for example, let's think of a good question. User accounts, there we go. Maybe I want to know how additional user accounts affects my terms of use with Atvero. That seems like the sort of thing I might want to ask. So I can now say, does this refer to additional user accounts at all? So you can imagine if like you've been given a huge document by a supplier or a contractor or something you're working on, you want to triage and look through that document, the way this could save you hours and hours in kind of flying through and working through that document. So it's never seen this file before, half an hour ago. Additional user accounts. So yes, according to this document, it refers to it. It basically says the customer may purchase more, blah, blah. There you go, it's in there. And that saved me having to go through the terms of use. So I think thinking about this sector in particular, the ways I think Copilot can help. One, it can just help us be more efficient with emails and with meetings. That kind of goes across every sector, if I'm honest with you. This sector specifically, you generate a huge amount of information, as Marcus and Ben have both been alluded to already today. We can use that M365 chat to help us find the information. And what I didn't show is I can even do things like, say, compare this document to this document. Or does this document contain these sections, whatever it specifically is. There's some really good stuff there. And I think also being able to query and go through documents like this works as well. It also works in Excel. I've not shown you that, but if you're like me, love a pivot table, terrible at making them. I can type in Copilot what I'm trying to analyze, and it will build me pivot tables and pivot charts on the fly. So that was super quick. I don't want to steal all the time, but a quick demo of Microsoft 365. Copilot, Mark, if you can reshare the slides back in, that'd be awesome. As I said, this will be available to purchase from 1st of November. So if you're interested, please speak to your Microsoft account team and we can have a look. And if you are using something like Atvero, then guess what? It will be ready to go nice and easily. So we'll just bring the slides back up. I've got a couple of takeaways for you, and we can share them afterwards with kind of things that you can do to get ready. And then I will pass back to Ben. Oh, here we go. Here come the slides. Give us a sec. I'm just gonna, there we go. So very quickly, I'm just gonna take control. I just wanted to leave you with this one. How do you get started? So one, there's something called Bing Chat Enterprise you can look at use today. We've provided documentation for how you can think about getting ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot, but this is probably what I wanted to share. I've got some preparation. There's some documentation on how it works. There's a community you can join to learn more. So again, we'll make sure that you get these links afterwards if you want to see more about this. And with that, I will pass back to Ben.
That was incredible, Richard. So it's the first time I've seen it. As I'm sure, same with lots of people on this call, and it's actually sort of blown my mind. And probably could have watched another 3 hours of it in the Microsoft product. So no, it genuinely is, and I'm getting so many messages on Teams from colleagues and things about it as well. Love how it interplays with Atvero. Obviously for us, that's a real strength. So looking forward to exploring what our customers and people do with it, because obviously, as with a lot of these things, you're trying to figure out the technology at the same time as the business use cases. And you did a great job at explaining some of those for everybody on the call. But no doubt there's going to be even more that once you get stuck into it. So yeah, really, really cool. We're now going to move formally on to the Q&A part of today. We've got about 11 minutes left. So had some great questions already through the session. Richard, are you aware, has there been any additional ones that have come in over your demo?
There's one that I can take just around licensing for Copilot. That's probably unfair to make anyone else take that call. So no, Microsoft 365 Copilot is not included in E3 licensing. It's an additional license per user per month license. And you don't have to license everybody though. So what I would say is what we're seeing, particularly in this industry, we're looking for those users where it can really make a difference, give them some time back, make them more efficient. So it's probably not something that you go statewide. It's probably something that you do in pockets. I think that answers that question. I think there was another question still on the kind of Revit piece that came in. So Marcus, I don't know, maybe if you can, I'll bring you on the screen actually. I don't know if you can take this one. It's kind of just saying, okay, I get that this is not the best place to put them, but like, what's your guidance? How do you store them as part of the entire set? Or maybe you can share some thoughts on best practice there.
Yeah, sure. So I don't want to get too much into the IT world, but Really, Revit files either belong on a server that's local to your desktop. So people can either basically have a server and you have your machines in the office and you connect to that model. You can go for a cloud desktop solution where you have something up in the cloud and you have cloud desktops with your Revit running on it to connect to it. Or you go for Autodesk Construction Cloud, which is meant for exactly this. So you can take your laptop, work anywhere in the world and connect in. I'm not going to so I won't comment on the cost effectiveness of it, but I see it as an investment. So people look at the license fee and go, it's quite a lot for that, but it's a fantastic collaboration platform. So don't see it as a cost, it is an investment in helping you work better internally and with external people that you're collaborating with on the project.
Cool. Ben, was there any that you had?
Yeah, got a couple more. So Marcus, again, one for you, and then Richard, there'll be one for you as well. So Marcus, can I have custom naming schemes in Atvero, or does it have to be ISO 19650?
So
that's not the technical name for it, is it?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah. So in all our demos, we show 19650 because it's the way the industry is standardizing. It's what the government mandates for a lot of the projects that it leads on, and it's gone from what used to be called BS 1192, which was a British standard, to a international ISO standard. So I think it's really the future. And also Atvero was built because of 19650, really, because 19650 isn't very friendly for humans to read. It's very structured, but it allows us to pull metadata out of files and show who the file came from, what part of the building it relates to, etc. But we work with any naming scheme. So if you can describe a naming scheme which isn't ambiguous, because that's important, the computer has to know how to check names and generate them, Atvero will work with it.
Got another question more on the Copilot side of things. How many years has this been in development? And how much resource has been put behind this?
It's a great question that comes up, and people think that kind of ChatGPT came out and we thought we should start being involved with this. But I was actually in London yesterday. Our CEO Sachin Nadella was over. We had an event down at Excel, and he was kind of saying that really we started on this like 10 years or so ago. We had to build a supercomputer that our partners at OpenAI could use to train these models. And then it's kind of all spawned from there. Plus, we've had AI in the Office stack for a long time. I'm sure, Marcus and myself could get really boring talking about some of the things we've done in search over the last 10 years. I guess the differential change is the scope that Gen AI brings and being able to democratize it and do it at scale. And that's what's different. So, yeah, sometimes I think because we've kind of gone from announcing this to releasing it in quite a short space of time, it's like, oh, did you think of this, in March? And frankly, no, we've been building on this for quite a number of years. It's just taken to get to a stage where the models are strong enough, but also they can run in a way that makes sense. We can democratize it. We can deliver it at a cost-effective price for customers. So yeah, not a short answer, but yeah, a decade or more is probably the long answer, I would say.
Given I've not met you in person, Richard, that demo's made me question whether you're even real.
I am still. I'm sure. It's the interest. I'll be honest with you. I was at this conference yesterday at Excel, right? We had lots of customers coming up to us, and this industry and across all industries. And what really got me was when you show it to people, the questions that come back, particularly on that chat thing of, okay, well, if I've got this file and that file, and I've filled in this file, could I compare it and look? And my mind's like, I don't know. Let me play that through. It's the things that users come up with is really kind of mind-blowing, and that's what's exciting. And I guess a lot of the challenges we get, people going, but my files are stored in this or that or something else. I guess the benefit for a lot of customers on this call that are using Atvero is like, well, you're kind of ready, right? The files are in the right place, we're ready to go. So some of that ramp up you're not going to have that a customer where all their documentation's on a file server. You're already going to be ahead of the game. So yeah, I assure you I'm real.
Do you think, though, the challenges that you'll face with this are less about the commercial model, less about the product features and functions, and it's more about ensuring, I mean, that's why you were so explicit on the security side of things, but it's that sort of like conscious decision to let AI into your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think the business and the user side is important. And that's why, I don't know if you saw it in the demo, I didn't call it out, but in lots of places it says this is AI generated, it might be wrong. We are being really explicit to customers that it might be wrong. And also why we're putting on those references 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on things in so many places is because we don't want this just to be a black box that no one's ever, that says stuff. We want it to be clever. We want it to impress people, but we want you to be able to close the loop. And like, if it comes back and says, if I say what's the latest on insert a project name, I want to be able to see the references. Well, I looked in this Excel file that was the project plan. There was this email from Marcus last week called Project Update, and Ben, you had a call with Rich. We want to tell you where we've pulled the data from, because I think that builds the trust that people can see it's coming from reputable sources. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we cannot underestimate the human side of this, and we at Microsoft are certainly not underestimating that. I think the tech side is, not going to say it's easy because that's unfair on the many clever developers we've got, but actually getting this out there is going to be the human side.
Perfect. So we've actually got a couple more questions. Given we're close to time, what I just quickly wanted to do though was just say thanks to everybody who's joined in case you have to drop off for your next call, and also just to bring up some of the next steps if people are interested, and then I'll ask the remaining questions. But from the Atvero side, you've got a QR code there that you can scan, which will take you to a demo that was recorded very, very recently, and it will give you some really great insights into the solution. You can visit the website too, and you can book a demo if you're interested through that. And from the Microsoft side, we encourage you to get in contact with your named account manager, primary point of call, but also they've got a ton of great information coming up on the sort of series of events in the coming weeks and months as well. And Richard's outlined a number of links that everybody should click to sort of get more information on the community.
Yeah, I'd strongly recommend looking at that Ignite event. Some of the things that Marcus alluded to that were coming soon, you might find more updates there, and plus you're going to see a lot more AI stuff as well. And if you register for the online dates, it's free, zero cost. You can consume it in your own time. So you can find the bits that are interesting for you and fit it around your diary. So yeah, please register. We'd love you to join us.
Nice. Okay, perfect. So people do that. It's on screen now. Couple of options to take that conversation forward. And then Marcus, a couple of questions for you. Is the intention that all AutoCAD drawings are stored within Atvero, and does this handle XREFs with full functionality?
So good question. I'll answer a slightly different question to begin with. So Atvero works with anything. So whatever you're working in, if that's AutoCAD, if that's SketchUp, if that's Revit, if that's Word, any application we've never heard of, as long as you can save files out of it, you can drag and drop them into Atvero and they start getting added to the project record. We have integrations with both AutoCAD and Revit, which allow you to publish directly from those design tools straight into Atvero. And the advantage of that is that we keep the consistency between the title block and the information inside the drawing with what we're recording into essentially the document register. AutoCAD, Microsoft and Autodesk did a lot of work, and they do work well together. So you can, and we have customers working with AutoCAD in SharePoint, and all of the XREFs do work perfectly.
What out-of-the-box reporting is available from Atvero, and is it easy to create?
Yeah, so we a lot of particularly architectural practices they call it the project database, the project book. They like to gather all the information about the projects they're working on together, because it allows them to go and query it and find out information about the sort of projects they've worked on in the past, the partners they've worked with in the past as well. So all of the projects that we create a site or a group per project. All of that information is gathered and held up at what we call a hub level, and that information is really easily queried to find the sort of stuff I was talking about. We have coming soon a quality assurance module, which will allow people to both audit their projects and report on the steps they have to go through to sort of, if they've got a quality manual for say ISO 9001, if they're following the steps, and they can register that, they can link documents to evidence that they've done that. All of that sort of information is being gathered and captured in both in Atvero and in Microsoft, in SharePoint. So that means Atvero can report on it, but also you can plug Power BI in. You can write, if you want to, Power Apps, which query that information and surface that information in a way that works for your practice.
Perfect, really good. It's also just worth mentioning to anybody who is looking to share this tomorrow morning when it comes into your inbox, actually the best route of action will be to get in contact with us, and we can share the deck, or if you've got anything specific, get in contact with us, i.e. me, Ben Edwards at cmap.io, or Marcus, or respond to the email marketing tomorrow. That's just so you can access this presentation. I think though, as we're running on time, amazing so many people have stuck with us. So first off, appreciate everybody who's still here. Please do, again, check that final slide. Make sure you sign up for the Microsoft events. Check out the Atvero demo. Go through to their website, book a demo if you need. But as you move on for the rest of your day, just wanted to say thanks to the team here as well. Some great insights, great demos. Appreciate all of your time as well. Guys, any comments from any of you? If not, we can sign up and let people enjoy the rest of their day.
Thank you, Ben, for hosting the meeting.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Speak to everyone soon. Thank you.